Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we discuss every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I am Skylar.
I'm Raptor.
And this week we are discussing Series 4, Episode 6, The Doctor's Daughter by Stephen Greenhorn. It's
Yeah.
This episode, I think the best way to discuss this episode is to talk about how much of a clusterfuck just the casting of the titular character is. That being, the character is played by one Georgia Moffat, no relation with Stephen Moffat, who is the actual daughter of Fifth Doctor Peter Davison and the wife of David Tennant.
I forgot about those two things, and that makes the whole thing a lot funnier. Wait, how old is she? She looks a lot younger than him.
Well, this is over 10 years old.
That's true. But I remember them being together since a while ago. So how old is she? How much younger than him is she?
About 15 years.
Yeah. We have more important things to discuss.
Yeah. So this is our second Double Martha special week, though honestly she has way less to do in this episode than she does in last week, other than get horribly mentally traumatized again.
Yeah, I was just thinking why? like maybe to have someone on the Hath side, but then it's just
I guess
you could have done more. This feels like a 45-minute syndrome episode.
Yeah,
and where it falls short.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, definitely. This is I think everyone here will agree that this is so far the one kind of jank episode in series. It's still fine, and I still think it would be mid to low good tier in another season, like series 2 for example, but here it's just hello.
Yeah. Honestly, we remembered it being a lot better than it actually turned out.
Yeah, no, same. This is one of the episodes I've seen more often. I've definitely seen this one at least 5 times, and was one that I would pick out whenever I did rewatches.
Yeah. And I think kind of what's happening there is you remember the strong premise, and you're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And the end
the actual
scene,
episode
yes.
is. The actual episode is not actually that interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were two things. One, there's a lot of things that happen in this episode because plot is just okay, we need to get from point A to point B now. This happens, let's go. And then I mentioned this in chat, and I can explain what it means when we actually get to a part where it's relevant, but the premise of this episode and how they executed it, particularly with the main antagonist, just felt really like Star Trek the original series, where there's or
jank low budget TNG. Early shit.
Yeah, which suffers from the same problem because early TNG is essentially recycled TOS scripts. But the fact that it's the main message you could boil down to, aside from the daughter stuff, is war's bad, okay? That was peak 60s Roddenberry commentary, which it's not a bad message, I'll give it that, but it was also just this guy's just evil. You could have done so many interesting things, but this guy is just evil. But yeah,
okay,
it's just
okay. So on the TARDIS data core page for this episode, at the bottom of the section that has the little blurb about Georgia Moffat's relationship with David Tennant and how this was actually where they met, and all that. There's a sentence here that dealt like at least 1d4 psychic damage to me, which reads, in retrospect, not only is Moffat the doctor's daughter twice, but she is also in a way the doctor's wife, as well as the mother of the doctor's daughter. I feel a migraine coming on. Okay.
That's
Oh, no.
that's some River Song levels of convoluted right there.
Okay.
Putting that on the suspect account on Twitter.
Oh,
Suspect tweets.
you right.
This dude kind of sus.
Yeah.
God.
Okay. So yeah, we start here exactly where we left off last week. That is, the TARDIS just kind of went there because plot, with Martha
they
inside.
kind of do the like, and then they try to like explain it later, but it's like they don't really make it make sense.
Which, okay, now to be fair, this is a slightly less egregious case of because plot, because both before in like Big Finish stuff and after in stuff like especially like The Doctor's Wife, there is commentary about how the TARDIS, if they decide, will just fly them fucking wherever and just be, like, intentionally like take them where they need to be, even if it's not where they were trying to going. But this case is a particularly egregious case, just so Martha can be there to do basically nothing but get emotionally traumatized.
Yeah, it's
So it's slightly less egregious, but still egregious.
yeah, because basically it's literally just like she walks into the TARDIS, and then the TARDIS is like, oh, just so happened to remember this one thing in the future.
Hey, gang. Hey, Martha. I understand you need to go log off for the night because you need to go have dinner. But this duty requires 3 players. So, to queue, I need everyone here in the party.
Also, I fucking forgot how brutal that Hath's death was. And credit to Freema Agyeman. That's like some of her best acting she's done, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Doctor Who. And it's like, at first I was like, well, that's a little bit overblown, isn't it? And then I was like, well, wait a minute. She's formed a personal connection with this particular member of the species. And number 2, this is Martha post the year of absolute hell. So she probably already suffers from that. So it's just like anything that terrible. Like, it's a good scene. Again, this episode is weird. It has really good scenes, particularly really good character moments, and then it just occasionally stops trying to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. This in places very much kind of feels like the, well, fuck, we gotta have a low budget episode in here somewhere.
And credit to the scenery, like the actual like underground place, like either they do some camera tricks or they actually had like a pretty varied set. Like, it looks good. I like the setting. Like the setup, as I said, like I think we all talked about this, the setup has potential. And the premise, we still remember to this day. Obviously it's memorable in that sense, but it's just like, but what goes on is like not that interesting except when you get to the final reveal, like when there's 10 minutes left of the episode.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. Honestly, the way I would describe this episode is like it's kind of, I mean, basically most of the episode is just we need to get to a place, and then they take a long time to get to the place, and it's kind of like a similar setup in that structure to like 42, except unlike 42, it's not actually tense or engaging the whole time. It's just sort of like breezing through quote unquote traps that don't actually challenge them in any way or do anything interesting. And it's a lot of just like filler for a couple like, good character moments in between like the actual plot, which is sort of
Yeah. So yeah, they land and basically immediately, they get nabbed by these soldiers and taken to the cloning machine, which obviously creates the titular doctor's daughter. Rolled credits. You know what I'm thinking about? Obviously they get interrupted, but when you think about it, the episode really like has to contrive into like, oh shit, we don't have the time slash budget to like really write too much into potential like clone children of Martha and Donna. So we're just gonna have 10 do it, even though none of the other ones are processed. Like
Yeah,
they kind of just forget about that angle after Jenny is created.
yeah.
It's also
And the thing,
go ahead.
yeah, the thing is, like, you see that at their like base thingy, they do actually have like another clone thingy, and Donna's still with them, so you think they'd pop her hand in there too for a sample,
Yeah,
but
because it literally takes 5 seconds, and all they're doing is like wasting manpower if they ignore it. Like considering how fucking like jingoistic zealots they are, it's honestly kind of surprising.
Yeah, this episode started out rough for me because first of all, they have like that one overzealous soldier boy who like kind of reforms at the end. But anyway, they have that. They take them all and it's just like we are without your consent going to birth children from you who we will then like basically have no choice but to go to war. Like that's the first fucked up thing. Second of all, that doesn't even make sense
Yeah.
because looking at the rest of their technology, they basically have like semi-realistic like future human architecture and a rocket ship and their like terraforming thing, but then they just have a cloning machine which is basically magic which will make an entire new person within the span of like 10-15 seconds that is already clothed and has battle knowledge. It's just like, wait, hold on, back the fuck up, sir. What? It was just, I can accept a lot of nonsense out of Doctor Who, but that was just a moment where it was just like, okay, someone had an idea of the Doctor's daughter, and they were like, well, how the fuck do we do that? And then they were like, well, okay, we need it to
Yeah.
happen right away before we need to have the singer, hello, dad, and then credits. And it was just like, why? It was really rushed,
yeah,
and
and
it soured. I basically didn't start liking the episode until we got some more Martha time, and until we got to the one scene with Jenny, Donna, and Ten in the jail cell. Like that was when I first started liking the episode because it starts off so stupid. But that's the end of my rant.
Yeah.
yeah, fucking, what was I gonna say? The setup of like the doctor's daughter, it doesn't even make sense because it's supposed to be a cloning machine, so how is she coming out looking like significantly different?
I
And
fuck it. Don't think
there's a
too
lot of there's a lot of like just roll with it, except
yeah,
it's like
just
it gets to the point where
roll
you
with it.
really like there's like a just roll with it where it makes sense and it's kind of like, yeah, okay, I can accept this, but like this episode basically from the start everything is built on just roll with it from like start to finish, and you just kind of have to keep rolling with it, and you really have to suspend your disbelief.
I will say I like how like it's not just like Star Trek, it's also like very much like classic sci-fi lit in how this episode approaches its anti-war themes about literally manufacturing soldiers effectively. Like that feels like, again, like I mentioned this like a couple weeks ago or whatever, but it feels like something out of the fucking like old beat up paperback sci-fi books my dad owns.
Yeah, I was very much
Um,
commenting on how, if you get to a point where you can basically produce soldiers like for essentially nothing, you lose the cost,
Yeah.
kind of. Which again reminded me of TOS because there's a great episode, I forget the name, where it's like this society kind of does battle almost over like a video game format, and if you hit a virtual area and people die, the people actually living in the real version in real life of where the virtual map is simulating, basically have to walk into an incinerator. But it like
Yeah.
didn't like there's no real missile that killed them. They just have to go and die. So it was
Yeah.
again like
Or
the
like
premise is there.
or like yeah, or like the thought of um like how easy it is to like how easy it is to like get wrapped up in your own mythology even when it's all like relatively new.
Frankly, I would have liked to
Like
see.
I'm gonna make an example here because I don't know if this is the example that the I don't know if this is the example that the episode was going for, but it's a timely one. Let's say 9/11. Yes, attack. People died. However, we went in and then killed a disproportionate amount of people basically at this point, all in retribution for that one thing that basically no one in this call can actually remember happening. And we're all almost 20 years old or older in Skylar's case.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna make that example. It's like the idea of fighting for so long that it feels like it's longer than it has been. Obviously, with
Yeah.
the sci-fi scale,
There,
you can do a
there
bit.
has been war in the Middle East that the U.S. has been involved in literally my entire life.
Yeah, and most of my life for as long as I can remember my life, we've been over there. So there's definitely that. And again, talking about the premise, that's the most interesting part of the episode to me, at least from like a setting, thematic perspective outside of the character stuff. And again, it's revealed. It's a good reveal, but it's like essentially like 45-minute syndrome. Okay, we found this out. Now we go wrap it up. It's like you could have sat with that a bit more. I don't know. But yeah, it's a good point. It's definitely prescient.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thematically, this episode is absolutely like the themes of this episode are great, and how it eventually executes them in the ending, I think, is good. It's just that everything leading up to it feels like, okay, we need to get everyone in the right place so we can do this slam dunk. And it's really noticeable. The Doctor and Donna get separated from Martha by Jenny setting off an explosive. Martha then befriends the Hath, and the Doctor and Donna and Jenny all get locked up for being pacifists, where we have a monologue about the Time War number 3492. When you actually really critically think about it, I think it is a good idea that Moffat eventually moved everything on from the Time War arc, because fucking God, when you think about it, the amount of monologues that has to go through and literally almost 10 straight years of this being a major trauma for the character, it was actually getting to the point where it was starting to hold the show and the character back. And then Chibnall went ahead and did it again for no other points than, I guess, oh, hey, guys, Gallifrey's destroyed. Do you remember the last time we did that? It was really nice. Everybody really liked it.
Chibnall, take a drink.
Okay. I'm not going to necessarily assume that was his intent, because who knows? He may have had other intents. But boy, does it fucking look like that.
I know what you mean. I will say this, though, in giving this episode props where it deserves it, I think this is my favorite 10 explanation so far of what happened, and probably because Jenny is.
It is a good one.
Probably because of who Jenny is, it cuts close to him, and it's like you see something that's kind of rare for the Doctor's character, in that he's acting like there's something that actually pierces his armor, and because of that, he's acting not like he would if this was anybody else. Like I think if Martha or Donna had like a clone daughter, he'd be like, "Well, hey, don't be like mean to them. Yeah, she's a soldier, but like it isn't her fault that she was created against like your will." Like he probably would have started off more favorably inclined, but it's just I don't know. It's a good dynamic, and even though it does start to get overplayed by series 4, this is by far my favorite version of it because you can tell it's like it's really coming back for him.
Yeah, no. It's just like a thing of like when you shotgun these as quickly as we've been doing, you start to notice like, man, when you watch these close together and not in the context of these all airing years apart, it's like, man, this happens a lot. It's in an even tighter span for RTD because the companion turnover was so fucking short.
Yeah. It's just nice to be like, "Oh yeah, I we're gonna meme about Smith's tenure a lot, but like in Rings of Akaten, where he's just offhandedly to Clara, it's like, oh yeah, I brought my granddaughter here, but like you can see it still like affects him. Like that was real. He has a whole family that he never talks about, which makes sense, but it's like there.
No, believe me, I would really like for them to talk about Susan in some capacity, but the problem is I don't want the current writing staff to talk about Susan in any capacity.
Oop. Yeah, I don't know. It was just
at least she has some stories with like 8, and I believe Carol Ann Ford has been doing like Time War like audio drama shit recently.
Yeah.
So that's nice, I guess. Just another thing to shell out my money for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever happened to Susan? Wait, I forgot that like that was the thing.
She leaves, and then there's like 8th Doctor stuff where he eventually reunites with her, and then I'm not sure about anything else.
Where does she leave to?
Earth in the future.
Huh.
Yeah.
I legit, for some reason, we legitimately forgot that like the Doctor had an actual like biological granddaughter.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Believe me, the show does too sometimes, except to like vaguely mention her in passing. It's kind of whack when you think about it.
Yeah. I don't know. That's where the strengths of this episode lie. It confronts the Doctor to look at himself in a way he basically refuses to most other times.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is definitely where the strength and I think where the highlights come from. It's just a shame that they were hasty in the construction, so it's like
yeah, definitely. 10 accidentally escalates this war even further.
Oh yeah, and another. Okay,
it's
that
like,
has
well,
to be
great jackass. The time, great jackass. The time constraints that you were working with now just got even tighter because you accidentally revealed the thing that they've been fighting for this entire time is. Well done.
Yeah, that's just, and then the episode dives again because it's just like, oh, I just randomly realized something. Oh, here's another layer. Wait, what? You're going to kill all of them? And it's just like, look at him. He's general evil. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, it's...
It's real, like, God. And it's very silly, too, like, the extremities of it. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do some genocide, because that's what peace is. And the Doctor's like, bro, what? I'm just like, bro, no, like, this is just what it is. This is what war is. Oh my God, it's such big brain commentary, get it? See, because they want to do genocide to get peace. Do you see how that's a contradiction? Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Yeah, this episode is not subtle.
Yeah. And it's not like there's points when like it's like there's points where it's like good RTD unsubtle, because as we all know, RTD can also be incredibly unsubtle. And then there's points where it's just unsubtle, and it's just kind of like, okay.
And here's the weird thing. It's like we have. You could argue we need Martha to like have a little bit of a split up with the team and have some time with the Hath. Like, okay, sure, but then like we don't know what they're saying. So like Martha, credit to the actress, does a good job playing off of people basically making, gurgling noises in a bathtub, sure. But then like we don't know if the Hath have their own version of general evil. We don't know if they know what's going on more than the humans do. We don't know if they also worship this source that the humans do. It's just kind of like we only see this perspective, and maybe the point is that
because the
sometimes
Hath,
you only know
there
one
is, there
perspective.
definitely is a thing where the dynamics are fucking whack, because the Hath, like, Martha sort of understands them, but you don't ever really get their perspective in all of this, other than to assume that it's basically the same.
Yeah. And, like, credit to the design. It looks cool. It's not a typical, hey, let's just have an alien that's a cat. Like, it's not that, sure. It's a fish with a breather. But, like, no, like, they don't have their own translator. The TARDIS can't, like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just felt like a weird choice, especially if you're trying to do this story of all things.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's like haha breaking out of prison shenanigans. Though there is the fun thing of like 10 pulling out like a fucking like wind up mouse from his coat pockets.
That was good.
Like whenever there's an opportunity for the Doctor to pull wacky shit out of his coat pockets, that's just like, why does he have that there? That I like that. That's good.
Also, I have to say this is absolutely nothing in the overall scheme of things, but it's like when Jenny seduces the soldier and like to break them out, and then Donna's like,
That was low key cringe.
yeah, I mean I get it, like just a pragmatic solution, but like after that happens and then Donna is like, I'd like to see you do that. I just thought to like imagining 13 doing that, and then the episode being
No!
like, and then the episode being like, get it? It's a callback. Like I could just imagine that happening. And for the record, I do think Jenny should come back at some point. I don't trust them doing that now, but I do think that would be cool.
Good old Big Finish doing that for us.
Hell yeah.
Like actually, literally, they've done that.
Oh wow. Well, more to add to my wish list then.
At least I'm pretty sure they have. Hold on, I'll keep talking. I'll check it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just there's so many things. There's so many moments in this episode. I will admit though, the one point where it's like Jenny has to do like the fancy flips to get through the wall of lasers, I was just like, okay, that 90%. Like, it seems to me someone was like, okay, let's do this. And it's
That's
like,
not
why?
something even the Doctor can do.
Yeah, and it's just like...
Like, I don't get where that part comes from.
It's a trailer shot. That's what it is. In fact, I'm pretty sure they showed that in the next time thing.
Yeah, they
correctly.
did. They did.
So it's...
They fucking did.
But I love how 10 embraces her after that. It's like, you were brilliant. And it's just like, the way to the Doctor's heart. Doing cool shit. Brought to you by Jenny and River Song.
Styling
the
on
Doctor's
them.
into femdom?
What?
Does that mean the Doctor's into femdom? Wait, no, that's his daughter. Never mind.
Well, okay. When it comes to River's Song and specifically 11, I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah.
And then when it's 12, all bets are off.
Possibly, yeah, no, I can see it work. Yeah, 12 doing that too, honestly.
Great, now I have
Anyways.
to make a new tier list.
Rank the doctors in tiers of bottom.
We're in the Bronze Age of the internet. I have to do something. Anyways, I will say
Okay.
the one clever thing I will praise, and I kind of already have, but they, for the episode's credit, they do plant the whole idea of the revelation of the date like pretty early on, like as soon as
Yeah. No, that is actually like one of the few actually well executed parts of the episode.
yeah, and it's a Poggers Donna moment.
Yeah.
And frankly, her writing was
Yeah.
like weird. It's like she was half like almost like the Christmas special introductory Donna with how she would like say some things, and in others she was like really insightful. So I was like, this is an interesting episode for her. It wasn't bad. It was just like she felt more like the runaway bride Donna than like this current version
Yeah.
has been. That might have just been me. But...
Yeah. So yeah, that's the next thing actually is they get to the revelation that Donna has been paying attention to these things the signs all along and realize that they're stamping the date and that this entire thing has only been going on for 7 days and people are dying off so fast and new generations are being created so fast that it's been mythologized, which is again the part of the episode that has to deal with the the time scale of this entire conflict is actually executed extremely well, I think. Very little else is, but I still think that's a big fuck, like that's such a brilliant idea, I think.
Also, the fact that it basically started because the like commander of the mission died and there was like a power struggle, like
Yeah.
that's one of the few things about this whole construction that makes perfect sense to me. Like, yeah, of course there would like racism and factionism would get into that, and then
Yeah.
you have a literal
Definitely.
infinite army machine, and here you go.
So yeah. And then the other thing that is well executed is them getting to getting into the center of the ship and finding the source and realizing that of course it was never a weapon because this ship wasn't ever like a military vessel. It's a terraforming thing. Like the reveals are good.
Yeah.
I think.
I could go on about how the terraforming thing is basically also magic, but in comparison to the infinite army machine,
Yeah, but
I'm willing to let
terraforming
this
is
go.
okay, but also terraforming is a really popular sci-fi concept.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely not out of left field, and it makes sense for where the few coherent themes of this episode are going. It was just, yeah, I think it was another element of 45-minute syndrome.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like, oh, we got to wrap this up. Oh, you break it, and now it's working throughout the entire planet. You just break. I don't know. It's. I'm not gonna ding the episode
Sure,
for it,
whatever.
but it was just kind of like, yeah, okay, it is about that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of silliness.
So yeah. Uh. So then, yeah, obviously, 10 has his big speech being like, hey, we don't need to fight, and everyone lays down their weapons except for evil old Irish guy. Which, okay, you know, this is getting into nitpicky plot hole territory, but either A, the clones have accelerated aging, which I don't think is the case because the entire idea is that you're supposed to be making settlers, or he just came out of the machine old as fuck. In which case, why did he come out of the machine old as fuck?
That's a good point, actually.
Or
Huh.
he's an older generation,
Because if this is only
which should
no,
theoretically
because
mean...
this entire thing has only been going for 7 days. So even if he's from an older generation, if he's already has already aged to that old,
No, that's what
that
I'm
means
saying.
that
There's
they
a
have,
plot
for some
hole
reason,
there.
extremely accelerated lifespans.
There's a plot hole there because if we're taking it to be they don't age at an accelerated rate, which would make sense, that means he should know what all of this shit is, and he doesn't. It's just maybe it was part of the casting where it was just like, this is the best person we got for this, which, you know, granted, I guess for an evil person with no character, he's good. I don't know. The second thing, okay, I hate the way Jenny dies and then waits to come back is so contrived. It's like
this is we want to leave the door open, but we don't want the character to be like that. Like, we don't want to completely write the character off, but at the same time, this is a one-off appearance.
Yeah, and again, this also feels like. Actually, this actually feels more like Star Trek: The Next Generation, because there was a great opportunity to change the status quo a bit. You don't even need to have her be a full-time companion, but it's like, nope, we got to reset everything, except we'll kind of cheat and have her be out there somewhere. So it's like, okay, you know, Jenny couldn't have pulled 10 out of the way from the shot. She had to take it herself, and then...
Well, also, because it's melodramatic.
And then Martha, for some reason, is just like, oh yeah, no, she's not like you enough. And it's like, bitch, you just got here. What?
How the fuck do you know?
And then it's just like, and then she like wakes up, and then she like, the fact that she leaves makes sense. I don't have a problem with that, but it's just like, you're not gonna try and find your dad? Like, to be fair, it's hard to track him down, but it's like, you couldn't have tried anything? Like...
You know who's not hard to track down? River Song.
I mean, you joke, but yeah. I don't know. It was a whole series of things that I was just like... Again, they lazily hit the reset button. Except they couldn't even commit to that because they only reset it until the Doctor leaves, basically.
Anyways, so yeah, a lot of like, this is one of the things that gets a lot of flack from like butthurt bitchy like classic fans, which is Ten going on this rant about how he wouldn't kill and even pointing a gun at Cobb and then not doing it. Here is the thing. First of all, your classic examples about the Doctor being above weaponry, like, these people forget the fact that the Doctor spent centuries, possibly even millennia, in a war that was so terrifying and brutal that our minds cannot fully comprehend it. Yeah, I think after that they'd be a little bit done with like violence. And B, even if they were averse to you, even if they did occasionally, if like there was no other solution, resort to weapons and or violence, they still, every incarnation still abhorred war.
Yeah.
And again, there's no reason to not expect that the Time War massively changed the outlook of this character.
Yeah, no.
This is my soapbox rant for a minute, but like, I swear to God, classic fans who go off on how, like, believe me, I think there are things to criticize about the Doctor's, like, about when the Doctor is like hardline, like no guns, no killing, especially in like Chibnall era where it's like, oh well, we still need to have violence to do this, so we'll just have other characters walk in and do the work for the Doctor, or cases where it's like, okay, but in this case it would be actually justified or whatever, or like 13 handing over like the master to the Nazis or whatever. There's cases there, but in general, I am not opposed to the Doctor being a hardline pacifist, especially after the Time War.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I don't like the construction of how he gets to the point, but I think it's totally within his character. And frankly, the
Yeah.
fact that because I've heard some people argue that he was never going to do it and he just picked up the gun to make a point. I think he was seriously
Yeah, no,
debating
he
it.
did. No, I think he picked up the gun to prove a point.
No, well, here's the thing. Because I think it makes sense. I think he basically was.
I think
he
the
was
only
not
time
thinking.
he actually is.
I think he was
Okay.
not thinking. He was like basically like autopilot, thought about what he was doing, and was like, "Okay, yeah, no, like this is a line. I'm fucking pissed,
yeah.
but I wouldn't do it for this reason." To me, that's more powerful than like, well, I'm a fuck with everybody. Because I like the idea that the only time we see Ten pick up a gun is this, and when the Time Lords return, because something about that just speaks to me about his character. But like, I don't know, that's at least my interpretation to it. Too bad the setup is kind of borked in this episode, but
Yeah.
it's whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean like there's definitely like that's a fair interpretation. I think my interpretation is the only time that Ten was holding a gun and actually seriously considered using it is in End of Time.
Oh, I think he was more serious there, no question.
Yeah.
Degrees, you know?
But yeah. I will say, as much as Martha is underused in the episode, I do like that because of like the trip, that the reunion trip that she has, she gets horribly mentally traumatized again and is literally like, nope, no, I'm not doing this again. Which again further cements why Martha is like one of the most interesting and well-written characters in the history of the show, because she's like the only one who you really get the perspective, except for like maybe like Tegan or a couple others, to really get the perspective of like, no man, no, I'm not doing this shit anymore.
Meanwhile, Rose is ripping holes in reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, definitely there's still a sense of like it, like there's a sense of like any relationship, close relationship with the Doctor can be low-key unhealthy or lead to like tragedy, which is I think exemplified by, as much as I hate her resolution by Donna's departure, and how Martha has been so far the only one to like fully 100% like realize like, nah man, this is fucked.
Yeah, and like everyone who sticks around too long ends up like getting something,
Yeah.
something around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if rumors are true, then like Ryan and Graham will have been the first since Martha to voluntarily leave. Which I'm not. That's not a dig against.
Are they
Chibnall.
voluntarily leaving though?
Well, okay.
Do
to be
we
fair,
know that?
To be fair, I'm assuming that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I doubt he would
Yeah.
kill two people via Dalek. That is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would bet against.
Yeah.
I would bet more for
Yeah.
them leaving.
No, I'm wondering. I'm actually like, yeah, I'm wondering how they're leaving too, because I'm wondering like I'm not sure I could get the angle of them just deciding, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore and leaving, but I also don't get the angle of a Martha or like a Tegan angle where it's like, no man, like fuck this, I can't do this anymore. Because Martha's was built up over a season of her basically dealing with Ten's bullshit, and Tegan was at the tail end of several extremely violent stories with high body counts.
Yeah, I mean,
There's no way Chibnall could do that without it just feeling like this wasn't earned.
yeah, I mean, we're going off on a tangent, but I'll just say
Watch me be wrong in 2 months.
I do think
Wait, is that when the next season is coming out?
No, the Christmas
Yeah.
special.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't know. I could see them they've basically completed their character arcs, so I could see them after almost being killed by a Dalek again, being like, "Hey, we're gonna go and like live our life and rebuild our family, and like we love
Our
you,
character
but
arc is
no."
done. Our head writer has no more need for us. We will bid you adieu now. Robotically exits TARDIS.
Jack enters. What's up, bitches? No, that was a digression, but yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely, I think Martha being here, I think you could have done a lot better, and like her one major awesome scene is sadly the one where like she's being traumatized again. Um,
Yeah.
I think that could have been handled better, but I also like her end thing to Donna and paying it a lot more attention now than I was when the first time I watched this episode about how she emphasizes like she basically at one point is like, I want to leave, but then after that she's like, no, I'm going to travel with you forever. It's very like almost classic tragedy that it's like you had an out and you could have experienced, a few wonders and then gone home and you could have remembered it all and it would have been this wonderful thing and you would have been a better person for it, but you pushed your luck. And I may hate how I'm like Jeff, I hate her resolution. But yeah, it's the seeds are definitely planted there.
Yeah. Um. Uh. So yeah, I like we already talked about how we didn't like the fucking end thing with Jenny. So I think unless uh anyone else has anything else to add, that we can move on to ratings. All right. All right. So yeah, again, like this feels kind of like the well, we got to do a cheaper episode in here. And as I said, I feel like there definitely are some places where the execution is extremely flawed, but overall, I think the uh I think the thematic elements in it and the ideas presented in it and the fact that it is not like a completely cringe watch means that I think I can let this episode get away with a B minus. It's fine. It's kind of jank, but it's fine, and it does have some interesting ideas at least. Like it's not like it's not like, let's say, Praxius, which is like like a consistent like 6 out of 10, where it's like, okay, interesting concept, you did fine with it, you didn't fuck it over at any point. It's more like a less egregious example of like Orphan 55, where like the idea was good but the execution was god awful. In this case, I think the idea is good, really good, and in some cases the execution is really good, and then in some cases it's kind of mediocre.
Yeah, I I agree with a lot of those sentiments. I think this is the first real drop in quality of the entirety of Series 4, which like good on them for getting this far. But it's still a shame to see happen. Um, I don't know. There was a lot of like, I don't know. As I said, like this episode was reminding me of Star Trek a lot, in particular because there are some Trek episodes where they have a really cool concept, or the acting is really good in a few parts, and the guest star is really good. But every time I begin to really enjoy it, something from the other parts of the episode like rips that away from me, and I was just like, oh yeah, we're in this episode.
Yeah.
Just the ridiculous magic technology of several of the things, the construction of the setting, the lack of anything interesting with the villain, and the basically total lack of meat with anything with the Hath, yeah, with the Hath and Martha. It was
Yeah.
just, I don't know. For me, it was a little bit the the positives unfortunately did not wholly outweigh the negatives, which is why I have to give this episode a
Yeah.
C. Um, I guess the best thing to come out of this episode is that David Tennant met his wife, his future wife.
Yeah.
In a
Good for
fun
him, I
role
guess.
nonetheless. But good for him. Yeah. See.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with the Star Trek assessment. Like, we've watched the beginning of the Next Generation. And it's very much reminiscent of that. You show up at a place and there's some sort of conflict going on, but then it turns out the conflict is not what it seems, and it's just sort of very thinly veiled commentary, like with the
Yeah.
depth of racism is bad, or sexism is bad, or war is bad. Um, and so
I
you
think I
definitely
think we can all at least admit that if this was like a Chibnall era episode, it would be significantly more like badly unsubtle and significantly clunkier.
oh for sure, but it's still not a great episode overall because there's good things going on there, but they're all at the end, with the exception of like two moments in the middle, and it feels like an episode. That's all I can say. It feels like an episode.
Yeah.
It just sort of happens and then it ends. I'd say 6 out of 10.
Okay. Um. Yeah. All right. So next week, we will be discussing Series 4, Episode 7, The Unicorn and the Wasp, which, oh boy, it's time. It's another Ansem Seeker of Darkness episode. So we all get to play the game of, is this one literally unwatchable like the last one, or just okay? I remember it just being okay, and it being at least better than Shakespeare Code, but who knows? I might be wrong.
I remember it being pretty.
All right. So yeah, I guess now it's time to move into our next segment. All right, and this week we are discussing Series 2, Episodes 7 and 8, Dead Man Walking and A Day in the Death, which are the second and third parts of a loose trilogy revolving around Martha Jones and Owen's death and resurrection as basically a lich, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to check the types of undeath, but yeah, pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Reanimated conscious corpse. So yeah, like I think so. Um so yeah. I think the general consensus from all of us is that there is a massive quality difference between the two, where like Dead Man Walking is kind of okay but has some like weird moments in it and some fucking jank CG, and it feels like a series 1 moment of like, we need to do something big and we have huge ambitions but we don't have the budget for it, but fuck it, we're just gonna do it anyway. Who cares if death is this really shitty looking like CG skeleton obscured by CG smoke who Owen has like a like weird like wrestle fight with.
Yeah, one of the afterlives
Yeah,
that
it
exist
was.
in Doctor Who is pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a bizarre episode. It's just like the premise is just already so weak. It's like, hey, remember that glove that was supposed to be a one-off thing, and then we made it a two-off thing? What if there was another one, but it was kind of different, and also it was tied to some weird local legend for some reason, and also
Yeah.
now the personification of death was here, and he was a guy in a skeleton morph suit from Party City with bad CGI fog around him.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of the entire episode. There's not much more to it beyond
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then the
yeah.
lead writer in the writers'
Jack
room
talks
said,
to, like,
"You're
a creepy-
promoted."
Yeah. Jack talks to like a weird, creepy oracle child to get the other half of the resurrection glove. Sure.
Just in our major Doctor Who slash Torchwood rewrite, we replace her with a shielder to have it make even less sense.
Oh, fuck. Actually, though,
Oh,
that would actually be pretty poggin.
I'll put it down in my notes.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to ask a clarifying question. So I don't know. I kind of always, maybe I just made this headcanon up, but like the reason Owen stays alive, one of the reasons Owen stays alive longer than he should, is that it's Jack that brings him back, and since he's immortal, that like does something different to the glove, whereas like a mortal person
Well,
brings
they
someone
already
back.
said that the energy transfer thing was because it was a different glove, whereas this one was, I guess, like this death summoning glove, I guess.
So just
And
one
then
had a
he
different
didn't die
iOS.
after that because, yeah, he didn't die after like Death got sent back to the Shadow Realm because we haven't written him out just yet. He still has like 5 more episodes left. Um um yeah. There's definitely like there is some good parts in this first episode where like Owen's like walking away from like the morgue, like putting a shirt on and doing stuff, and Martha's like, you can't do the investigation on yourself, and he's like, well, why can't I? She's like, because you're dead.
Martha knowing what's up as always.
Yeah. um Meanwhile, Owen go the whole thing about him going out to the bar, which also plays some pretty like, I will say, one nice, like, Torchwood has like good choice of like playing licensed music. But and then fucking they get arrested and they talk about the fact that how like Owen, like, literally none of his like biological systems are working because he's literally just a walking corpse, which then leads to him fucking like projectile vomiting the like alcohol that he drunk out of his cyst, which, man, he must have drunk a lot considering how much of that there was.
Oh yeah.
And I love how even Jack, who is the immortal dude from the 51st century, is like, that is the most disgusting thing I have ever seen.
It's like, I've been some places, man, but holy crap.
And then obviously there's the whole death plot stuff, which is kind of jank.
Lord
all
of
that.
the Weevils.
Yeah. Oh yeah, King of the Weevils, yeah. And then we get into the actually good episode, A Day in the Death, which is like, the entire time watching this, I'm like, well, okay, Reset's just okay, and Owen is alive for literally 99.9% of that story. And this one is kind of jank, so why do I remember this arc so fondly? And the answer is A Day in the Death. This is one of the best episodes of the season, I think. Well, where the last episode did the same mistake of trying to be so much bigger with its ideas than it can afford, this goes way small scale and just tells a really good story.
Yeah, it hits hard. It really
Yeah.
does. It reminds me of, what's the one in the first season about the guy who
Random
died and it's
Shoes.
just like,
Random Shoes.
yeah, Random Shoes. It
Yeah.
reminds me a lot of that, like, very heavily. I don't think it's quite as good because what that episode does is like superb, but I
Yeah.
think it gets into that same lane and
Yeah.
takes it pretty far.
Yeah. And like the framing device is wonderful.
Yeah.
the story like again, like it's weird how much like again, like it is fucking astonishing how much this story like not even like Dead Man Walking, just specifically A Day in the Death makes you actually care and feel bad for Owen.
Oh yeah.
And like it's a sense of like it's understandable too how like he goes through this thing of like first he's raging because he can't eat, can't like literally basically can't do anything requiring bodily functions. And like eventually like he can't even be angry about that anymore because he can't die either. So he like there's no point even getting angry with it eventually, and just he has to accept it, and he accepts it and decides to help other people instead.
Yeah. It's I mean you could make a joke about how his like big character arc starts after he's died, but it's it's true.
Yeah.
And I think this could very easily be a story where it's like, oh, I guess trigger warning discussions of suicide, like, oh, a person's trying to commit suicide, and like there's the person that's like,
Yeah.
hey now, neighbor, don't do that. But it's like the strength of
Yeah,
it.
no, I've seen Superman comic do this. I've seen Deadpool do this. There's plenty of other
Spider-Man.
examples that are out there.
Yeah.
Spider-Man,
But
yeah.
I think the strength is like when you do this trope and it's someone who you don't expect.
Who's already dead.
Yeah, first of all, he's already dead.
Someone who's a callous jackass and someone who's already dead.
Yeah, you do it from someone who's not like the ultimate paragon, which is why I kind of think it works with Deadpool too. But that's a different discussion. But it's like it's interesting and investing, and it's again like it does what Torchwood does best with all its stuff, with taking the stuff with like a character piece, and because this would be horrifying in Doctor Who, and it's horrifying here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it despite the really dark themes. It's oddly uplifting in how he decides to endure it, because he has no choice, and it's like, well, fuck it, I might as well make the best of this hell on earth scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I can say, or just from our own personal experiences, that works really well as an analogy for just backing off of literally any suicide attempt. Like,
Yeah.
I can say I've been in that space of just like, well, this isn't gonna fix anything, so I kind of just have to do just do your best. I mean,
Yeah.
really, I've been in that, like, we've been in that exact space several times, and it's just, yeah, it's a powerful moment.
Yeah. Definitely. It's definitely like this. I feel like this entire process has been just so much of like a back and forth on this show's quality, but I think episodes like this and Random Shoes is, I think, things that I can point to and be like, this is why this show is worth caring about, and thinking of it and just not just relegating it to this weird relic of like the mid to late 2000s that went alongside Doctor Who for a couple of years. Like, thinking of it, like, when you think about it, it's like Torchwood is the only one that's really had like the high caliber. Like, Sarah Jane Adventures is okay. I've watched most of it, but I don't really remember anything that really like popped off as much as this one did. And even then, it's a show for children, so unless you're going to go like the Steven Universe route and find ways to discuss heavy topics from a children's show perspective, you're not going to be doing that. And then obviously Class. Who the fuck? I still have yet to watch an episode of Class, but like,
I watched the first one, and literally the 12th Doctor cameo is the most exciting thing that happens in that episode. I'm sorry. To
Yeah.
any class lovers, all
Yeah.
5 of you, I'm glad they got on Big Finish. That, kudos to y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. And then yeah. So yeah, it's like stuff like this. And like also like the scene where he's talking with the old dude who's got this alien artifact and is clinging to it because he thinks it's what's keeping him alive, and Owen's like, you're literally just surviving off of hope. And how that ties into the themes is just, it's wonderful. Yeah, like yeah, it may be jank at times, this story, but I think at like a day in the death is like it ties it all together, and I don't think, well, yeah, I think the other episodes obviously needed to be there because there needed to be a plot around specifically like Owen's revival first, and they had to get that out of the way first. But then after that, I think like the fact that they were then able to make this episode, I think really I think makes it stand out that much more. So yeah. I guess if does anybody have anything else to say before we move on to ratings? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so yeah, like I think like Dead Man Walking would also be Dead Man Walking would be like a C, where it's like there's decent stuff in here, but it needs to do something, and it's kind of jank at it. It doesn't necessarily really succeed at what it's trying to do. But I appreciate that it takes the bullet so that A Day in the Death can be a slam dunk A+.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Is definitely the I mean, as is kind of the norm for Doctor Who 2-parter stories and Star Trek 2-parters. While we're kind of on the subject, there's usually one that is better or stands above the others.
Yeah.
And I think overall, for that reason, like the whole arc, I would rank at a B. But that's because Day of a Death absolutely carries the emotional resonance and like satisfaction of Owen's arc and just that whole storyline. So ranking them both together, I would give it at a B, entirely because of the second half.
Yeah. Like it's weird how like you read like behind the scenes how it was supposed to be Ianto, and then they went, wait, this isn't going to work, it needs to be Owen, which I think is a good thing because Owen, it's weird to say that you cared about Owen, but you at least feel more emotion towards Owen at that point in the series, whereas Ianto kind of grows into a character more throughout series 2. Whereas Owen was always like a strong presence, just not necessarily always for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And then also it means that Children of Earth can fucking slam punch you in the nuts. With Ianto's demise there.
What are you gonna do?
Which, man, they got fucking mega hate mail for that one. And, like, there's still an Ianto Jones shrine up in Cardiff now. It's wild. Anyways, yeah, Raptor?
Yeah, I would say the first one is definitely... it's a mess.
Yeah.
I would say, like, genuinely 4 out of 10. It's an absolute disaster. The second one is definitely really fucking good. I would say probably like a 9. It's a really powerful episode.
Yeah.
and I don't think it hits as hard as like some of the tens. But it's really fucking good.
Yeah. So yeah, next week we will be discussing Series 2, Episode 9, Something Borrowed. And I hope you all are ready for some wacky wedding shenanigans. Because that's what you're getting into next week. Like, next week is going to be a much more lighthearted couple of episodes. Um, So yeah, I guess before we move on to our outro, we do have the results of our the first round of our poll for our next bonus episode, which we'll probably be recording at some point after next week's episode. And overwhelmingly, with 80% of the vote, we are going to be talking about Big Finish. So probably when we're done recording this, so absolutely by the time that the episode itself is out, I will have a poll for what Big Finish episode we're going to talk about up. So vote in that if you would like to hear us talk about it. Until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for perks like early access to episodes, listening in live to recordings, and potentially even guest starring on an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me at WheatleyDL.
I am an undead fish soldier. You can find me at skyhigh9_5 on twitter.com.
I'm Raptor. I'm cool and shit. And you can find me at Quixotic Queers on twitter.com.
And we will see you all next week.